All right, we're going to get started. Yeah. Gary Becker. No, the other him, not me. All right, we're gonna wait for everybody else to be able to come in and get seated there. And so y'all come on in and find your seat.
Come on in and sit down.
Got a few more that's coming.
Go ahead. You just sit right there. There's 2 seats right here.
You got another seat somewhere? Okay. Margaret, come on up here and have a seat.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to get started today. We appreciate everybody that's come out to help celebrate this 70th wedding anniversary for Margaret and Curtis Tickle. And we appreciate God's goodness on their life. We want to go to the Lord in prayer and to begin with today. And then I'm going to say a few things. And then after we get through here, we're going to go back down for refreshments in one of the dining areas here. So let's go to the Lord in prayer. Okay. Father in heaven, we thank you today for your love and mercy. Thank you for Jesus, our Savior. I pray now that your will be done in every heart and life. Thank you for the years, God, you've given Margaret and Curtis, so many years that have gone by. And Lord, we just thank you for the days you've given them. And Lord, we do pray for many more. We just ask you, God, that your will be done in every life, everyone here today. Thank you for loving us and all that you do for us. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Now, 70 years is quite an accomplishment for two people to be married that long, or to be, and mostly to live that long. And for them to have surpassed that time is a great thing. And not many people make it there. Do that just due to length of life. And so Margaret and Curtis have been, I've known them for over 40 years myself. And so I'm well acquainted with the family, married to one of the daughters. Oh. So I'm thankful for God's mercy on all of our life. And so just a few things I wanted to mention today and get into a few details. You know, we don't always know people's past. We think about the future, we know them now, but it's good to remember some things. It's not just, it's good to know where you're going, but sometimes it's good to kind of remember where you've been, depending on what you want to remember. And we want to remember a few things. I sat down this week a couple of times with Margaret and Curtis, and that's what I'm going to refer to them right now. Years ago, to me, when I first met them, they were Mr. and Mrs. Tickle. And then after I got saved, he became Brother Curtis, and she was still Mrs. Tickle to me. And I still called her that because my daddy always called his mother-in-law by Mrs. Root, was her name. And I guess that's why I did that. Then whenever we had children, Daniel came along, then they became Nanny and Poppy. But today they're going to be Margaret and Curtis for the sake of this ceremony. I asked them about renewing their vows, and I told them, I said, you know, I know people wanted to renew their vows, and they felt like it'd be better just to remember what, you know, have an honor, time to honor. I told Curtis, I said, I had a fellow tell me one time he didn't believe in renewing vows because he meant it the first time he said it. So he agreed with that. So anyway, I talked to him a little bit about how they met and how it came to this place right here. 70 years of marriage. And so I wrote down some things, and now I've done some of this from memory from talking to them, and I've had some things I've got written down, and I've got some other things I may say in between. But I tried to cooperate with both of them. I talked to him and then went and talked to her, and and try to get the story straight. And so if there's any discrepancies here, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. The fact is, they've been married 70 years. I have most of the facts, and if anything else is incorrect, then it's no big deal. But I appreciate them being willing to talk to me. It's not something you go and sit down and talk to your parents, much less your in-laws, about how they met and what happened. And some of it seemed to be a bit humorous. And it's like everything. Life is about ups and downs. And our life is ups and downs from the time we're here until we leave this world. We have good times and bad, hard times and easy. There's different times that we have. And so they know what I talk to each one of them about, but they don't know what the other told me. So we hope this works out all right. All right. Talk to them about how they met. And I come to this determination. I just sort of put all this down and wrote it in as I had heard it. Somewhere around the late summer, early fall of 1942, Curtis was invited to the home of Rob and Zed King, that's Curtis's aunt and uncle, and by their daughter, I think it's Eileen, one of their daughters, invited him there for the express purpose of meeting a young girl. Now at the time, Curtis was 17, Margaret was 14. So they're just teenagers. You don't think of your family, your mom and dad, as back when they were teenagers. You just think of them as kids growing up, and then when you see them in the older age, you sometimes don't think about them. But at one time, they were teenagers and they met, and the two seemed to hit it off right away and became friends. I don't know what the conversation was that day, but Curtis said when he started to leave that Margaret said to him, "If you don't kiss me once, now you'll have to kiss me twice later." So evidently they hit it off all right. So after the first meeting, they began to seeing each other on a regular basis. While not at the time going steady, as we call it, they nonetheless seemed to care for one another. And as time went on, they each saw each other more and more. And finally, after a couple of years, Curtis asked Margaret if she would marry him. I don't know if this was a formal proposal or if he was just fishing. For an answer, she replied, "Maybe sometime." Well, not discouraged by her answer, he was a little disappointed, but nonetheless, there was someone else trying to test their relationship. And that was the U.S. Army. Before being shipped overseas to Europe to fight the Germans, there was that incident where Curtis was supposed to come to see Margaret, but instead he went off to town with a friend of his. Having broken a date with Margaret, things seemed to be falling apart. But while away from home, Curtis began to write Margaret letters. As they corresponded, things got mended between them, and she wanted to give him a second chance. Before getting to the battlefront, the war ended. I guess Hitler heard Curtis was coming. He surrendered and gave up. Committed suicide, they said. But then Curtis, so he spent 6 months or so guarding German prisoners before being shipped back home and being reunited with Margaret. This time he made arrangements for a furlough, which would be through the Christmas holidays. This time Curtis was determined to get the answer to that question that he had seemed to be left up in the air. This time the answer was yes. Now, being pressed for time, having to report back to duty, the question was now when and where. they decided if they were going to marry now, they would have to elope. Curtis had a sister named Inez who was married to Sidney Diamond. They lived in Alamance County. I'd hoped that Inez's daughter could have been here today, one. And this is Curtis's sister over here in the corner, Arlene. And that's Margaret's brother, Kirby, and his wife, and that are here today. And that's her sister-in-law, who's married to Kenneth, her brother. And got some other family members too. But anyway, they lived in, Inez and Sidney lived in Alamance County. So they ended up at their house to invite them along as witnesses of the blessed event. Conveniently, a preacher lived nearby named, and I asked Curtis what his name was, and he couldn't remember. I asked Margaret, and she said, Coy Thompson, just like that. I don't know why that was, Curtis. I have that memory problem too. I told him the other night, and I told him before that I have this medicine that I take now that says causes temporary memory loss. And I told Joyce, I said, well, I had that problem before I started taking the medicine. How am I going to know that's affected? So anyway, Coy Thompson, who lived nearby, and I also checked on Coy Thompson. He passed away in 1986. He pastored the Glen Haven Baptist Church in Alamance County. But Preacher Coy Thompson, he cheerfully presided over the ceremony. Curtis, being the thoughtful person that he is, promptly upon leaving the preacher's house that day, gave him the last $2 bills that he had for his services. And all seemed to be well until the happy couple started back to Bethany, until Curtis realized that he needed gas for the car. Stopping at the nearest station, gas was just 20-some cents a gallon, maybe even less than that back then. But stopping at the nearest station, he reached in his pocket for a silver dollar he had been saving. Realizing the dilemma, not wanting to use the silver dollar, Margaret offered him a paper bill to use instead. Normally, such an incident would go unnoticed or forgotten. But the fact that Margaret kept the silver dollar until this day, after a here it is. And after a short visit in which so much happened, Curtis had to report back to the army, only to be shipped back to Europe, this time to France. Not wanting to leave his bride without the benefits of an army wife, he reported his marriage to the proper channels, and knowing he would need proof, he carried with him their marriage license. The army dutifully accepted the paper evidence and never returned it to him. After his time in the army, he came home. He and Margaret started their life together. While he was away, Margaret had found a job at American Tobacco, worked there for over 35 years. Curtis worked at a cone mill for a while, then back to farming and as a carpenter. They raised 4 children. They also have grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and great-great-grandchildren. They're at the to celebrate with them with, and there's some of the great-great-grandchildren there. And so here it brings them down to this point in their life. There's one thing that's missing. One thing that they have not seen in 70 years. And that's their wedding license. Marriage license. I knew the Army would not know where it's at, but the Alamance County did. The courthouse, the Register of Deeds, And so here it is. You've not seen it in 70 years, but there it is. They wouldn't give me an official copy. They stamped on it, not a certified copy, because I'm not a blood relative, but I am married in the family for 40-some years. And so I found that, and so there you go. You hadn't seen it in a long time, but it's real, you know. So I just wanted to say we wanted to honor them today and appreciate them for all this time. You want to hold it there? All right. You want to hold it then? And for all these years that it was gone, now the one that Curtis took with him was the one they give you, you know, to put in a frame. And so the Army accepted that one back then and took it. And so I was able to find that one, like I say, down at the courthouse. And like I say, we do have several of the family members. Some are not able to be here today due to sickness. Their son Alan had to take his wife to the emergency room, and so they're at the hospital. And then another two, my son, his wife's not feeling well today. She's expecting another one of their great grandkids in about 3 months, and so they'll be having another one here in March to be thankful for. And so we appreciate them and all that they are been able to live all these years together and enjoy 70 years. And I know that you'll appreciate and be thankful for them. We're going to. Does anyone else have anything you'd like to say before we're done here? All right. We appreciate you and appreciate those who come. Papa, got one.
I've been hanging around both boards on the weekend. We rambled the country. And we left each other. We said, we'll be seeing you. The first time I went to see her, I started to leave. I said, we'll be seeing you. She says, when?
All right.
Oh, boy.
Let me say something.
All right.
I was going with another guy. At that
I
time,
wasn't going to be there. She had asked.
I was kind of right, both of them. And both of them come home at the same time on a furlough. So we was all in the living room together. And Curtis got up and come over and give me a diamond ring in front of him.
I'll let them tell that stuff.
Well, I guess he was a pretty good fella because his aunt and uncle, we lived beside them for a while.
I didn't have to have too much proof. We would come back the next morning, nobody knew where to went, but Daddy, I had to tell him to get the ball in the car. We would come back, we went to her house first, and drove up, and her mama come out on the porch and said, where y'all been? She said, we're married. She looked at me and said, you kissed her then. I'll tell you going on with that night of the visit.
You know, you don't know how people's lives affect one another, and because of all that happened, I mean, who knew that, you know, what would happen after that? You know, I met Joyce, and we got married, and all of our other kids, children that got married, Karen and Alan and Denise, all married with children and now grandchildren, and I'm thankful they got married. I actually met Curtis before I ever met Joyce. He used to come in while I worked there. And later on, whenever I met her, and I called to ask her to date her, he asked Joyce what I looked like. She said, you've seen him, he works out at the tractor place. He said, oh, I know you're talking about, it'll be all right. Anyway, we appreciate it. All right, y'all got anything else you want to enlighten us on? I tried to make it less of a
I told y'all where she could dated. But she would have to go to church this summer.
That was one of the rules. If I came to see Joyce on Wednesday and Sunday, I had to go to church. I said, I'll settle for that.
You didn't have to go far. He is a church.
Yeah, my name is Church, so and I'm a preacher. It goes with the occupation. All right.
Rick,
Yes.
they're the last two living charter members of Maple
Right.
Lawn Baptist Church.
Yeah, I want to remember that too. They were charter members at Maple Lawn Baptist Church. Arthur Tickle, his uncle, was the founder and pastor of it then, and they're the last two living charter members of Maple Lawn Baptist Church. He was a deacon there for many years, taught Sunday school, and he and both Sister Margaret always involved in church for the years they were able to go, been faithful to church, and still to this day support their church, if you know what I mean.
They're sorely missed.
And yes, I appreciate it. Now, Brother Stewart there, he's their first cousin, Curtis's cousin. And Sister Peggy here was married to one of his cousins. I pick them all out.
I remember very well when they got married, and Sister Margaret lived with us while Curtis was away.
Yeah, well, you know, stayed with Ashby.
And did you buy Mr. Baines' 44 Curtis? You remember that? Didn't you buy that car from Mr. Baines?
Yeah.
Sure did. It'd been sitting in the garage. When you came home to get married, is that when you got it? That's what I always thought. I went clear on that.
I bought it before I got married, before I went back in the army.
Yeah.
And I had Dad to sell it for me while I was gone. And he spent the money. But he put it back in the bank.
Well, Rick, they kind of started their relationship with that good kiss. I think they need to give us a good kiss for it.
Oh, no.
Becky's wondering if I remember how to kiss.
Yeah.
Well, I think you ought to.
Y'all have to move them around.
All right, Gary and Joyce.
Whoever's wheel people here. And after that, we'll go down to the, we'll go down this hall into the left hall and go down and have some refreshments down there.
Daddy don't want to kiss her no more. He locked himself up.
Well, that was good.
This is Denise's bed.
Yeah.
Daddy said that wasn't puppy love. And Dee Dee Word.
It's my baby dog.
All right, we're gonna roll them on down to the, follow us on down to the right and then to the left. Down there, and there'll be refreshments down there.
And then
Hey, yeah, come here, give me some of your shit.
feel like going back to your room.
Hey.
Hey there. Hey.
So those are one time.
All right, y'all, come on.
Okay, we'll push your room. Say, hey, Edie. You're welcome. I'm gonna bring you back, okay?
Good job.
Yes, anybody that doesn't know us out, residents, our office. I know.